Okay, so you probably saw what I have in mind today. I've got the Kailas FUGA EX 330 on foot, but ever since I got this shoe, I had probably one shoe in mind that was pretty good comparison to this one here. But before I do get to that, I want to give a more full review and analysis of this EX 330 here. Picked a little off the beaten track trail slash road here today. Probably run into some overgrowth and mix of different stuff underfoot, stuff that you would encounter maybe over the course of a certain long race, 330 kilometers in fact. Tour de Géants. Yes, this shoe is designed with that race specifically in mind, perhaps even in collaboration, not quite sure about that. But it is one absolute beast of a shoe, and that goes beyond just the midsole itself. We're really talking about the outsole here. This is kind of monster truck territory here, something I believe I use that term to describe the Mafate 5 in my reviews, but I think this shoe takes it to another level, certainly fuller coverage, the Vibram Mega Grip, crazy burly underfoot. But first, let's go over the midsole specs right away. 39-34 millimeter for a 5 mil drop underfoot. I did confirm that. I got 40 under the heel, so within a small margin of error there. The foam is super critical EVA, and there is a lot of it. One of the immediate things I noticed the first moment I put the shoe on was the amount of cushion specifically under the forefoot. It feels like they really tried to amp that up in this shoe just to make sure probably some of those long descents, long miles, you weren't feeling that harshness coming through to the ball of the foot. That can sometimes be a sticking point for me over the course of very long ultras. Now, I have not done anywhere near tour length races, but of course that does apply. That level of midsole cushion, in fact, it was so striking that I was kind of feeling that it was even less than the spec 5 mil drop. It was really feeling more flat. I was actually kind of maybe looking or thinking that you should perhaps have a higher drop, or maybe work better with a higher drop, get a little more forward rolling momentum. The cushion level was just so high under the forefoot, it almost felt like I was running into a block of cushion, like even with the sensation a little bit that the forefoot may even be higher, which doesn't really make any sense because it definitely feels higher under the heel. It's not like feeling like a zero drop, but as I rolled through the foot strike into that forefoot cushion, it just felt like I was being slightly held up, and it was really noticeable in front of the ball of the foot, like almost at the toes. A lot of cushion really in the front of the shoe. Shoe's not just designed for pure heel mashing. This is going to give you a lot underfoot no matter what type of ground striking pattern you have. In terms of the feel underfoot, it is super critical EVA. Check out my review of the EX Pro model. That is a more dynamic, more bouncy TPU based midsole with a carbon fiber plate in the mix as well. You've got no plate in the mix here, and I don't think it's necessary at all. You get enough stiffness and protection from the added stack height compared to the Pro, and also that full length Vibram is a little bit stiff, and that certainly adds a protective element, something you really want for long miles. All that rubber, all that midsole foam does come at a weight cost though. This one weighs in at 11 ounces, 312 grams in my US size 10. For comparison, The EX Pro, different foam again, lower stack height with the plate, comes in at 10.4 ounces. That EX Pro model surely has a more dynamic, energetic ride. You really feel the bounce from that TPU in combination with the plate. Really a more ultra speed oriented shoe. Christian Minogio, second at OCC, getting nipped at the line by Jim Walmsley, of course. This shoe can handle any type of rugged terrain across any of the UTMB courses and distances, but I would say probably more towards the front of the pack. Those that are really looking for that speed aspect, you'd probably want to look towards the Pro model over this one here. Fit and sizing is good for me in my US 10. I do find Kailas, and that goes for this model, the Pro and the EX3. Also, Fuga Do 2, which I have in for test. I feel like there's just a little bit of extra length at the front of the toe box, so be aware of that. It's not an overly wide fit in the upper, but it is adaptable with that dual zoned type of lacing system. Kind of vary depending on what socks I'm wearing, how tight. I want to adjust those little quick lace-esque tabs there. But in general, I would go with ultra sizing for this shoe, in particular being that is that super long distance shoe. You want that length in front of the toe box, and at just a half size up from my true to size 10, I find that I get my solid ultra fit and sizing, but with a little extra length in front compared to other brands US 10. The 330 does feel solid and stable on the run, but it has quite an interesting platform. They do that by widening out the forefoot almost to an excessive degree, but it does work well. And also the rear foot, and really pinching in under the middle of the foot in terms of platform. Perhaps that's a better design for alpine rocky terrain, gives you a bit more maneuverability in and out and around rocks, maybe not having that wide platform under the entire base of the shoe. Maybe that's helpful. Also give a little bit, a hair of twist around the middle, just in case. I find them to be generally stable, but you're gonna have to manage the kind of expectations of the speed and pace that these shoes are designed for. Sometimes if I took them out on a, say, hour 15-minute run, you get going a little fast, and I feel like I was just pushing it beyond the range, the pace range that the shoe wanted to go. It certainly feels comfortable in terms of turning over, but I find that dialing back the pace just a tiny bit. Of course, again, we're talking tour, we're talking 330 kilometer type of shoe here. Dialing the pace back just that tiny bit, it just seemed to make the shoe ride a little bit smoother, a little bit easier, really in kind of the pocket of where it wants to be and where it wants to just cruise along on the trails. I've run this shoe in all kinds of terrain already. Not as much rocky today, but it is very lumpy and uneven in spots. This is not really a well-used trail, so definitely getting a sense of where the shoe wants to take your foot. At times I've noticed you have to manage the potential of an ankle roll because it is a firm underfoot feel in terms of the outsole, not as much adaptability under there, and it is a lot of foam. Supercritical EVA, again 40 millimeter measured at the heel. It just feels like a lot, and it's not super soft and super bouncy, so it's all up to you. Do you think that kind of firmer feel is more manageable, or would you prefer something a little bit softer, a little more adaptable underfoot? You think that would help you get more feel of the ground underneath? I don't know. It's up for debate. I got that Mafate 5, of course, to check. So that is Cervidé up there. Fun little short punchy climb. You saw that in my VJ Ultra 3 video. When I'm up there, I could see a very steep kind of windy route somewhere over here, but I don't exactly know where it is. I'm not sure if that path will go down and lead me. I kind of think that's it over there. It's like a windy thing that I could see from up there. So coming back to stability and maybe specifically preferences about cushion, softness of cushion or lack thereof, it's not an overly soft midsole foam here. There's a lot of it. It feels deep and it feels, I would say, dense, but it does not feel soft, airy, or bouncy. It's actually probably a good match for that alpine type terrain that it is designed for. But in comparison, a shoe like the Mafate 5, other more, I would say, American style max cushion ultra shoes, those are gonna lean into the softer side of cushion, softer, squishier. I just ran in the Kip Summit Max, and that is certainly, with that ATPU, that is a softer, kind of squishier, but it's different because it responds a little bit quicker. So it's not kind of the ATPU foam stuff. That is certainly something new and interesting. So definitely want to dig into that more as I test that shoe. Okay, we got a little descent going on here. This is perfect. Woo. Oh, nice. Good spot to stop and take a quick look at the upper here. Dual zone lacing system here. I find it, I don't know, I vary it based on what sock I'm wearing. It is a little bit tricky to do on the run though, because you kind of have to feed a little extra length down there from the top in order to pull some of it through there if you want to loosen up. So I would say, you know, it's not as fast as you would think to adjust on the run. Also, if you wanted to kind of tighten it up, you have to kind of push it down a little. I think it's something best set up before the run. It does allow you to dial in this section to your foot and just kind of set it and forget it. A little bit of an interesting setup here with this little hook. It allows you to get in and out of the shoe pretty quick, which is cool. It is never, if you're wondering, come loose on me on the run, because once you cinch it down, it gets pretty tight. So this one they leave unattached, and this one you go through the little eyelet here. So when you're lacing up your shoe, what's going on there? Oh, I was clipping the edge. It clips on there, and then once you tighten it down, that doesn't go anywhere. So don't worry about that coming untied, but it does help to get in and out. One thing with this lace pocket, this is a quite large lace pocket. The pocket itself is like really this entire length. It might even go all the way down here, not that you could use that. But in the Pro and the 3, I could stuff this toggle and the entire length like very easy. But in this one, the opening is small, and where the opening is situated, it's something about it is different. The lace goes right across it, and I have a hard time getting the toggle in there, and even I have to kind of work to stuff. At least I figure if I get that little lace pull, that little plasticky thing here, and the rest of the laces in there, it's fine enough. But it is noticeably more difficult than the Pro and the regular EX3. So not sure what's going on here and why that's any different. But you have this dye mesh upper here, very breathable. The shoes, let me take it off for flexing here. I find it very breathable. It lets water in and out. I was trying to avoid the puddles on the way over here just now. Let me grab a glove here. My poor new Skida gloves. These are made in the USA from Vermont. Pick these up at TRE. Very soft, very nice. By the way, Vibram rubber, full coverage outsole. There is not any gaps here except this section right by the rear. So throughout the middle of the shoe where you're going to be landing, they added this little segment here, I think for adaptability in the rear for when you're landing generally steep
alpine rocky descents, hard descents, you want to allow that lateral outside edge where you're going to be landing to adapt a little bit more, and that might give you a little bit more safety in terms of twisting in rocky terrain. But you can see how these lugs really stick out. It's a very cool setup. You have 4mm lugs down the middle, which is a lot in itself, and then they extend to like 6mm around the edge. Check out my EX Pro video. I thought it was a cool design because it adds a bit of stability via the outsole. Without having to have a overhanging platform or anything, you could get the platform to widen out a little just by extending the length of the lugs a touch. And I don't know if that's the main intention of it, but of course the edges of the outsole gripping in soft terrain, rocky terrain, that is really going to help a lot in terms of traction. So I really like the 4-6 setup. Of course, again, the shoe is 11 ounces, so getting a lot of rubber here, a lot of lugs, 6mm, 4mm, that adds up. So I think that's just what you're gonna get here in terms of weight, 11 ounces with this volume of, like I said earlier, dense midsole foam. It's not a soft and airy midsole foam. You want this to hold up, for example, 330 kilometers right there. Those light and airy midsoles, they might pack down, they may feel different towards the end of a distance like that. So I think they went with a denser foam here, and that's the idea. Durability over the course of one long run, not just the course of your daily running and shorter distances. And then you've of course got all that rubber. So one thing about this upper, I found that I think around the collar, I find sometimes sand gets in here and there. They do have the gator attachment points, and I have the gator, so that works well. If you want to run a gator, certainly if you're running a longer event like that, gator's essentially an essential necessity. They do have their integrated 4-point system here, and you don't have to worry about anything like that. But without it, I do notice sometimes, I guess around the collar, pebbles and stuff, little small sand can seem to, and it could be this tongue up here kind of funneling things in, and there's maybe a little bit of space over here. That could be just my foot volume though, but I would notice like a grain of sand here and there getting in.
You can see traction working out well here. I think that's the trail I saw from down below, but I'm not sure if it's the one I saw from across the way. This is surely a game trail, but it kind of looks like a trail. Just want to check the view on the top of this ridge here. That's what I always say. Just the next ridge. Let me just see what's over there. But I do want to get back and maybe do a little side by side with the Mafate 5, so I really won't go too much further. Always fun to find a nice rock to stand on. I don't know what it is about Kailas shoes. Always seem to want to go on adventure runs. That thing was narrower than I thought it would be. I didn't want to go too far. It's very thin. That was the telephone poles down there where I was standing earlier. Gonna head back down this way. I'm gonna probably wish I had put those gaiters on. All right, here we go. Let's roll. That little extra toe box space is definitely coming into play right about now. I mean, this kind of grade, this kind of looseness, there's definitely going to be some foot sliding going on, and it's good to have that extra toe space, extra space in front of the toes to work with. Whew. Whoa! They've cleared the path at Tour better than this, right? Got some new CEP Core Run EDT vertical socks here, bearing the brunt of those bushes on the descent there. They're called vertical, huh? So I guess that's aptly named, at least today. I do like the height of these socks. They call them mid-cut, but kind of like a crew cut. I don't like a too high crew cut, so this one hits just right. I like the padding under the foot too. It kind of extends from the ball along the lateral side of the foot, and standing around the house, at least, that felt pretty comfy. I'm not sure if it will do too much on the run, but it is a comfortable sock for sure. I kind of came up this way. I guess that path just materializes at some point. Yeah, it is almost mid-December. Can we pray for snow, please? Came down that hill behind me back there. Definitely feeling the pebbles in the shoe. That'd be a time for a gator for sure. That part I just ran up and down back there. I'm not trying to say this is the ideal shoe for that track, but it felt okay. I mean, the traction, I can't think of any real slips going up there, and it was pretty loose, and we had some rain, pretty soft. So the traction aspect was awesome going up, and even grabbing on the way down. Probably had a little bit of kind of side wobble because, again, it's a high platform, loose side hill, not really on a trail back there. Not the ideal off-trail type of shoe, but it could handle it, and I was a little bit careful. Mafate 5, on the other hand, I don't think I would want to try that shoe on there. That stack is even higher. I believe I'll double check when I get back. I think it's 46 millimeters at the heel, and again, it's soft. It has pretty good outsole though, I'll say that. Traction lugs. Doesn't have quite full coverage, and it is a heavier shoe even than this one. 11.6 ounces in my US 10 for that one. So that shoe, I'd be a little more leery doing that section compared to this shoe. Again, both not ideal, but a little more comfortable in this one, the 330 here. Another quick gear tidbit here. I've got this Nathan 20-ounce bottle, 600 milliliters. This came with the Pinnacle Pro 6-liter. It actually came with straws because the front pockets on that Nathan vest are a little bit lower, so they give you some straws. I like this ExoSkin. This is not a new thing. ExoSkin or Exo something. I don't know what they call this. It's a plasticky kind of insert there. I always thought that was for using it with a hand held, but this is just a regular bottle. And what's really cool about this, I just tried it in other vests, it prevents the bottle from sinking down too much because you have this one holding it up. So if you find those little bottle loops a little bit finicky, this thing works very well to reasonably hold it up well. I mean, even if it sinks down a little bit, it can't go further than that. So the nozzle is generally pretty close up high. It's not going to sink to the bottom of the pocket, so you can just pull it out and drink pretty easily. Also, when I'm doing runs like this, I like to tuck a larger size flask in a kangaroo pocket, just to kind of keep it out of the way. I can keep my camera stuff and other stuff up front. And this is also helpful on that thing because once I drink it down, sometimes it could scrunch down a bit, and then I have a problem like fishing it out of the back somewhere. So with that thing, it just sits in my lower back, kind of in a semi-rigid position, even when the bottle is half empty or even empty, and then I can more easily get it in and out. So I had never thought of something like this in a regular soft flask, but I believe I asked them about this at TRE, and they said this was one of Nathan's innovation. I was wondering if I should give credit to HydroPack, but they said they were in on it, so I'll give credit to Nathan on that one. As I'm winding my way back here, one thing I do want to emphasize is the protection level of the shoe. I suspect that may be one of the main factors you're interested in as you're watching this review, given the fact that it is a Tour 330 oriented shoe. And I have to say, I feel great. You can see I'm running a bit of soft sand on this particular run, but I have run this shoe across everything. Steep ups and downs, as you saw there, sections of rock earlier in previous test runs. And I never, ever, not once felt like I was lacking in foot protection. Now, stability can be something you may have to manage at times. Again, firm rubber underfoot, firm-ish midsole, but I want to emphasize that it does not feel like a hard firmness. It feels like a dense firmness as opposed to maybe a super soft, squishy softness that you may see in other Max Stack shoes. Very comfortable in a wide variety of terrain, particularly hard and rocky. Ooh, I didn't realize I had come down so much around this bend here. Steady climbing now, not that crazy steep stuff earlier. The shoe handles the steady climbing really well. Good support underfoot. I did have some issues finding a insole that felt right with this shoe. When I get back to the van, I'm gonna walk you through that, but I think it comes down to how the cushion is oriented. I just had trouble. I felt a little bit less support under the middle of the shoe. It felt like maybe it didn't quite feel like that 5mm drop as stated. It felt almost a little bit flatter, and I wanted perhaps a little bit more contour under the arch. I think that's one area under the middle of the shoe that you may have to adjust if you don't like that flatter feel under there. If you do want a little bit of contour, I have a different insole in here. It's from FootWave. I'll take a closer look when I get back to the van, but it is a brand that I found out about at TRE, and just when I got back, kind of threw them in this shoe because, like I said, I was trying to find the right feel under the middle of the foot with this shoe. And I went on one test run with this as soon as I got back from TRE, and it felt really great with that insole in there. So really loving it now. It's kind of smoothed out the ride for me, I would say. This shoe is retailing at $199, which I think is a very good price. Kailas shoes tend to be on the expensive side. Those pro models were, I believe, $300, and I think they have even more expensive ones. And I guess the brand is established in terms of notoriety and also distribution, and of course Asia, and better in Europe here than here in the US. So those prices are kind of high for a shoe that you haven't seen around a lot. Not quite sure on sizing, how they're gonna feel. At $199, I think, especially for what you're getting, the amount of stack, the range of this shoe in terms of a single distance and duration event plus long-term durability, that is a much better value. And I think at least some of their super shoes, maybe they have good enough sales in Europe not to worry about it, but to come in at 300 plus for some of the other ones, it does seem pretty high. But $199 is very reasonable. The Mafate 5 is retailing for $185, so well within the range. And I think generally speaking, based on what I hear in comments, there is a market segment for those runners, especially that are running in technical terrain, those European style ultras that are really not keen on that soft, squishy Hoka-esque cushion. Some people like it, some people love it. I just think it's different market segments. And I think there's a place for something like this where you get that denser feel, very protective, that you know is gonna handle that alpine terrain for that long of a distance, that long of a duration. All right, before I head out with the Mafate 5 and the 330 on, take a quick look at the insoles. They do have a very nice insole. It is some kind of supercritical foam here, perforated, but I don't think it's the insole itself. It is more the shoe itself. I noticed a lot of cushion at the forefoot and even a lot like up here. Typically when you feel a heavy amount or a big level of forefoot cushioning, it's really around the ball of the foot. I noticed a lot even ahead of the ball of the foot, which is quite interesting. So I was kind of like running into almost a block here, a block, whatever you want to call it, where it just felt like tricky to turn over. And with the big amount of chunk under the heel and that kind of level of cushioning up here, I just felt like maybe a little sag in the middle of my foot. Now I'm talking about my right foot especially. Sometimes I have issue with my right foot. Left foot, not at all. So this could be good for testing because it will certainly be fine or not even an issue for some or most of you, but I tend to have those kind of little Achilles, ankle things. Sometimes it gets me in my right foot all the time. So I know what will work generally for most people if you don't have any wonky ankles or anything, but with instability or something like that, I tend to notice it in my right foot. So in my reviews, maybe you get the best of both worlds. Anyway, this is the FootWave First Ray insole here. Pick this up at TRE. Their philosophy is an alignment first design. So they have a cushioned heel and they want to direct your foot along the outer edge and then towards the power area where you push off at the big toe. They don't want to just kind of stick some random padding or support under the arch. They really want to direct your foot in this way, up forward towards the front of the toe. So I do find it is well padded under this area, but I notice a little bit more through the middle section here. I've been testing a lot of insoles recently, and this one is actually quite lightweight. So in terms of having, say, an orthotic or some of these more structured insoles, not just like swapping insoles from one shoe to another, which I often do. And I had tried with this shoe. I tried some ones that typically work with me, and I was still just feeling a little bit of kind of issue with support in my right foot around this area underneath the arch. And this one seemed to work out really well for me. It has a flat bottom, which is kind of cool. So some of them are more rounded and they could be a little wobbly inside the shoe. This one sits really well, and I think that support coming through here is just a little bit different, and it seems to work really well, at least in this shoe for me. So I've been running into 330. This is my second run today, long one today, about an hour and a half, and this insole's been great so far. So I have a lot of insoles in for tests, so I'm going to be doing a roundup as I work my way through those. I have some other ones on the way, so I want to get everything together and do one big review. So both shoes on foot here. You could obviously, or maybe not obvious, but the Hoka feels wider. It has a nice rounded toe box. I think I prefer the shape of this Hoka toe box. Again, not certain in technical terrain, that kind of side hilling and stuff like that. You do have a wider platform here, softer cushion. This is just a really comfortable toe box. I really like it. Check out my full review on that one. It's just comfortable. I like it. It has an 8mm drop. They increased the drop from previous Mafate versions, and I think it works well. I was just talking about this one feeling a little flat, highly cushioned in the forefoot, highly cushioned in the rear heel, and perhaps lacking a little connection around the middle of the foot, which that insole is really helping me out with. And I think that was the case in previous Mafates. They had a 4mm drop, but to me it felt really flat. It was a softer foam, bouncier foam. I never had any issues with it, but I really think the 8mm drop here works well. If you're going to have this heavy a shoe, this amount of cushion, I don't think it's very noticeable because the foam is so soft. You don't have the impression that you're landing on a solid 8mm drop where you're tilted forward or anything like that. You kind of sink in due to the softness, especially with that big chunk under the heel. And I just feel like 8 can feel more like 5 or 6, honestly, on the run. So I don't think it's an issue with this shoe. Wider platform, of course. I do have the feeling of a snugger fit, a snugger wrap around. This is definitely a narrower shoe for sure, but with that lacing, I think it is quite adjustable. So if you did have a higher volume foot, you could accommodate that with the 330 as well. Certainly with this one, one other thing obviously to note out is tongue height. This one, no issues. I talked about, yeah, there's some, look, stuff got in there. They have the gaiter attachment point. So if you're doing any type of long distance race or running in any of that kind of stuff you saw earlier, you probably want to put the gaiter on. If you're running that distance in this shoe, you'd probably want a gaiter too, but look at the tongue height. It's just, man, why are they doing that? If you have to do a lace lock, you would certainly be up over here. I think they could really work on this. I don't know, it seems to happen all the time with Hoka. I hope they improve this, but no issues there. Again, you're gonna get junk in there, so you better go with that gaiter. So we've got a massive 46-38 underfoot with the Mafate 5. Again, 40-35 with the EX330. Definitely feels like a lot underfoot with the Hoka. Surprisingly, checking the platforms before I left, the platforms at the forefoot were almost exactly the same, and you wouldn't have guessed that by looking at the shoes. Really, I talked about those 4 by 6 millimeter lugs of the EX330. The 6 millimeter lugs really extend out pretty far. That's giving you a pretty wide base without having to have the shoe itself, the upper, the midsole, really stick out too far. Like visually, the Mafate 5 looks like it's going to be a much wider platform, but on the ground, they're exactly the same under the forefoot. Midfoot, of course, is definitely where there's a major difference. Very kind of cinched in with the 330, while the Hoka maintains that width from the forefoot through the middle to the rear. I could almost kind of feel that coming through to my foot, my proprioception of the ground underneath. It feels just wider under the middle of the shoe. I mean, I think that makes sense. You have a wider platform under there, and when you're hitting the ground, the edges of that platform under the middle of the shoe, you're gonna feel that even, you know, with a massive stack like this, kind of feel that around your foot. The 330 definitely feels pinched in. It feels like almost a more precise fit, almost a more precise feeling underfoot, at least relative to the Mafate 5. I mean, I wouldn't call it a precise feeling shoe necessarily at this stack size of shoe and weight of shoe compared to, say, lighter weight models, but here with these two on foot, it has a more precise feeling of the ground underneath you. Coming down this descent here, I do appreciate that wider platform of the Hoka. Really feels like you could sit back on the heel, even the midfoot a little bit if you wanted to lean a little bit forward depending on the steepness of the grade. But it just, you could smash down that downhill pretty comfortably in the Hoka as long as you have a clear path. This particular 2-track here, a little uneven at times, but I could generally see where I'm putting my feet, and I think that's going to be the main difference between these two shoes, where or what your intended terrain is going to be. Are you running more wide open spaces, clear trails, maybe California carpet, that type of situation, even kind of deserty track that could be rocky, but at least you know where you're going to be able to place your feet? Or are you really in that rugged European alpine type terrain, sharp rocks and such? That's where 330 is going to be coming into play as an option, where you want that more agile feel, I would say, in comparison to the Hoka. More protection, I would say. I wouldn't say a lot is getting through that huge midsole of the Hoka, but you do have a more, I would say, positive, firmer feel, perhaps over longer term distance and duration, over the course of a single outing. In fact, with the 330, a lot of that twisting and turning with a softer midsole, and this is not just the Mafate 5, but other softer stacks in general. That could kind of lead to a little bit of foot pressure, a little bit of foot fatigue. I think, say, firmer, denser foam like the 330 here, a lot of runners may prefer that. They prefer the consistent feel underfoot rather than maybe the constant like undulations of the terrain underfoot, leading to your foot perhaps twisting or getting little pressures coming up constantly. So it's probably the main difference between these two. I have to say, side by side, that short Hoka tongue, I am feeling it. I'm feeling that upper lace row on the front outside of my ankle, which is unfortunate. I would just like to not have that in my awareness at all, but it is on my left foot. The tongue softer, well padded with the 330, not even thinking about it. Do you really need 46 millimeters at the heel? Quite a lot, especially if you're gonna have to give up some weight gain to get it. The Hoka shoe here, 11.6 ounces. I've got 11 ounces, even with my 330. The FootWave insole probably adds a touch weight, but it's actually a very lightweight insole compared to other, non-stock insole types. I believe it's about 40 grams for a single insole, which is very good and kind of just a touch heavier than some of the beaded TPU ones. So probably slightly heavier than 11 ounces in my right shoe here, but still less than the Mafate 5. And to tell you the truth, the stack difference is really not that noticeable. I would expect, say, 46 versus 40 sounds like a lot, but again, that Hoka foam is a lot softer. I suspect that when I'm landing, I get at least some amount of instantaneous compression, more compression for sure than the 330 shoe. So I don't know, 6 mil difference. I'm not feeling a 6 mil difference here. In terms of the drop, 8 mil, it doesn't feel like an 8 mil drop with the Mafate 5. I'm gonna say it. I know people are gonna complain about the 8 mil drop. I don't know how many of those runners have experienced it. It's different than the 4 of the previous version, I agree, but I felt like the 4 rode pretty flat. The 4 mil drop in the Mafate 4 felt very flat. This one feels like at least it's something of a drop, and at 11.6 ounces, I think you need it. The 330, on the other hand, it's got a 5 mil drop, and I feel like that's how it feels now that I have that more supportive insole in here. It feels better now. It felt flatter than 5. It definitely feels flatter, say, than the 8, which is the spec of the EX3. The EX3, which is more of their training type of shoe, it's 30 under the forefoot, but I felt like there's more pressure in that shoe. It was kind of, you feel the slant of the 8 millimeters of that shoe and the pressure under the ball of the foot at times, certainly once you get into longer runs. I don't feel that at all with the same 8 mil spec of the Mafate 5, but coming back to the 330, the 5 mil drop, it didn't feel close to, say, the 8 mil drop of the EX3. It felt even kind of flat in the way that the Mafate 4 felt flat. Now with these insoles here, I feel better connection around the middle of the shoe, and I would say now it kind of rides like a 5-6 mil drop. So I think I've got good setup here with the 330. Very happy with this shoe. So that was just a quick A/B jaunt there, not as extensive as some of my other A/B test runs, but more like fodder for thought, fodder for conversation. I really wanted to focus on the 330 in this review here, and I do have a lot more max stack options. Certainly my latest reviews, hold on a sec, there's a weird lock here, you gotta use 2 hands. I have the Alta Mesa version 2 500 from the North Face, and Kip Summit Max. Probably my next run may be in the Kip Summit carbon fiber plated race model. So I figured I didn't want to delve too deep into the AB situation right now. Maybe I'll see what people think about those newer models, maybe do a bigger roundup, or maybe there may be a more appropriate comparison. But again, food for comments. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think of Mafate 5 versus EX330? What do you have in mind? Which would you prefer? Did this review help you in any way? Did it confirm your thoughts or suspicions about how these shoes might feel or ride? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you for tuning in once again to Humble Running. I've had this shoe for a little while, so I've been meaning to get this one out, but I have a bunch of stuff post TRE. Lots of cool content coming out. I'm gonna try to bang out some good ones before the end of this year, and of course, start off 2026 hot. So thank you for watching once again. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Do me a favor, again, check the description down below. I have links to previous reviews that I mentioned throughout the course of this run, and also related shoes that may be in the same kind of realm of this one, and also affiliate links, that kind of thing. Support the channel. You know what to do. Thank you for watching.